Well, welcome folks to Humans of DataHub. Today we are joined by Stephen. So Stephen, I'll pass it over to you. And if you could give us an introduction about who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hi everybody. I'm excited to be here with you all today. I'm Stephen Poe, Senior Data Engineer within the Data Engineering team at Coursera. And previously, I've worked in various companies ranging from sort of early stage startups to mature enterprises. And for those of us who might not be familiar with Coursera, Coursera was founded by Daphne Koller and Andrew Ng in 2012. And today, we're a global online learning platform and also a B Corp. And we offer anyone, anywhere access to online courses and degrees from leading universities and companies.
So then, Stephen, tell us a little bit about your experience finding DataHub. Like, how did you learn about it? What brought you to the community?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for a brief of context, our data stack at Coursera has evolved over time. So we start off with a few online databases, pulling data into Redshift, and then we expose it to Looker, and all of that was kind of orchestrated within an internal solution that we have. And over time, I think the number of tools that we have expanded. We've added components like Databricks, Airflow, Amplitude, etc. And also the number of data assets has grown over time as well. We're hitting pretty in solid figures of like five figures for data storage perspective, as well as a visualization perspective. So all that kind of calls for an increased focus on metadata around our data stack. And so we started looking into what open source solutions are out there. We came across a few, and we came across DataHub. And while we were kind of researching and conducting a POC, we found that DataHub aligns with our needs a lot in the sense of data documentation, a sort of a unified search experience, lineage information, and additional metadata. And so after that POC, I think our interest in DataHub increased. And we were also very impressed with the vibrant and supportive community. And also thanks to Acrodata for kind of helping us drive that open source community.
Yeah, awesome. So where are you all right now in your adoption journey? You're still in the evaluation stage, is that right?
Yeah, we're sort of at the tail end of evaluation. So we do have some roadmap of adopting some sort of a metadata solution, but I think there were some specific things that we wanted to enable within our organization with DataHub, and that kind of fell into I would say maybe three major buckets: discoverability of data, data management, and data governance. Right. Awesome. So some example use cases are if we have data sets available, where are they, and who do we go to ask questions? Even that would be a major win. In terms of data management, for example, if a production job goes down, who do we end up notifying in terms of downstream impact on Looker or whatnot? And if we were upstream changes, what happens to the downstream? And in terms of governance, maybe use cases around GDPR. What happens if we delete or anonymize a certain record on the online database? How does that kind of trickle down into all of our downstream visualizations? So all of those questions are things that we wanted to enable with DataHub.
Awesome.
Can you share a little bit about what you enjoy most about the DataHub community?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think as alluded to earlier, I'm very excited noticing a lot of talented individuals, everybody willing to share their ideas, their experiences, overall very responsive, very vibrant. And also, special kudos to Acrodata again for helping us sort of drive that community and increase adoption, and also being supportive as always with our nonstop questions.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, really big shout out back to you all. You and your team have been just really great partners and giving us feedback and helping us kind of understand use cases and flesh that out. So love right back to you.
Nice, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious within your organization. So I know we talked a little bit about discovery, talked a little bit about governance. I'm going to kind of flip the question that we had a little bit on its head a little bit. Who are the end users of DataHub, either currently or kind of targeted in the near future within your organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we would envision a phased out rollout plan. So we would likely start, because we do have a lot of internal data team use cases. we would likely start with data engineering, data science as perhaps sort of that first batch of users. But in terms of like a longer term perspective, like we envision that sort of anybody that works with data, on a very critical day-to-day responsibility-wise perspective would be consumers of DataHub. And we're also envisioning, we do have metadata around our online databases and how, whether we can incorporate some of that in terms of like our production platform engineering, being able to help us input metadata and documentation, so on and so forth, and also opening up perhaps also to business users where they could sort of input documentation in terms of like what they're seeing and how certain data sets could be used for their use cases. So I think TLDR, we'll start with the data team. We would like to roll it out to the broader company. And we would also like to roll out with our front-end production platform engineers to help us with metadata as well.
That's awesome.
Great. Yeah. And speaking of different features and use cases, what is your favorite DataHub feature or use case?
Yeah. I think that answer will change over time as new features are constantly being added. I think to answer this question for now, like we will start off with what we were looking for initially, which is the unified search experience. I find that to be very delightful. The team finds it to be delightful. And I think that the newly added lineage downstream impact is something that we have always held in terms of like high priority, and it's something that again, shout out to Gabe and to Dexter for working on this. I'm really excited about this. It will help us enable a lot of our operational use cases, and also having sort of that collaboration between different stakeholders of our company. So I would focus on the answer on those for now, but I'm sure that that answer will change over time as new features are added. It's very hard to pick like a most favorite feature.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the impact analysis, and man, it's just it's something that I wish I would have had access to 5 years ago. I would have had a fundamentally different experience in my role in analytics and BI engineering. All right, so then let's think about, so actually kind of like thinking a little bit in the future, is there anything that's kind of on your radar for 2022 that you're excited to see in either DataHub, the product, kind of like the platform, or within the DataHub community for this year?
Yes, that's a good question. I think in terms of specific features on the roadmap that we're noticing, there are a couple that we are excited about, such as column level lineage. I know that's a work in progress. Super excited for that one. And like for information, we had an internal poll around what use cases we were looking for within Coursera, and that actually came out like really high, higher than I had originally anticipated within our team. So super excited about that. Role-based access controls, I think, would be awesome in terms of controlling like which groups of users can view with schemas or which documentation. I think that would be very high on our list as well. Selfishly, a Delta Lake integration, just because we're gonna be like using database Delta Lake a lot, so that's exciting, and also integrations with or potential integrations with Slack and Jira for collaboration use cases that we've seen, notifications for changes, and maybe servicing up previous questions or tickets on certain data assets. I think those were highly exciting features among others as well. And maybe in terms of like themes, like some themes that we're also excited for is sort of how do we leverage metadata to continuously improve our data architecture. So some examples of that could be knowing now that we have sort of that end-to-end picture of our data, is there a possibility where we could potentially automatically optimize how pipelines are scheduled to meet certain SLA criteria, reduce concurrency issues and costs, right? And maybe help us sort of suggest where we could potentially consolidate our data assets to avoid having like multiple sources of truth. I think those are topics that we can consider as well. And the other theme would be like governance. So potentially looking into some sort of a centralized data policy access control, where we kind of consolidate sort of enterprise-wide data policies and make sure that we can control access like on the data contents themselves through some sort of a centralized fashion would be super helpful. And also just like ongoing automation and notification, where when some changes are happening to our data stack that may lead to downstream impact or introduce risks of us being like non-compliant. So those areas are areas that we're all very excited about.
Yeah, I think you just built out our 2022 roadmap for us. Sounds fantastic. No, those are some amazing use cases, and I'm also really excited to see how we how we kind of can start to build out some of these either alerting frameworks or recommendation frameworks to really like tailor to really manage all of the entities everywhere, right? Like right now we're very focused on surfacing entities regardless of platform, regardless of source, but how do we help people kind of curate that a little bit better, right? And actually remove redundancies or even like remove kind of like high risk data entities. So we kind of like minimize potential kind of like data governance or compliance risk. So I just think there's some really exciting ways for the community to build out some like best practices or frameworks around those things. Very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, super excited about that. I'm so excited for this year. It's going to be amazing.
Sure.
I know, Stephen, I don't know if you noticed, but as you were sharing your answer, Maggie was just like nodding and getting so excited.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely exciting.
Wonderful. What is your favorite DataHub Slack channel and why?
Yeah, that was tough to answer as well. I think a lot of the channels were very helpful in terms of finding experiences and answers. I think if I had to pick one, perhaps the announcements channel. Continuously, it will help me help us keep up to date in terms of developments on the DataHub product. So I find that to be very helpful and just very exciting to see how the product evolves over time.
Or what advice would you give to someone who's joining DataHub or joining the DataHub community or starting to work with DataHub? Yeah, like what advice would you give them in the early days?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say from our experience, number one, the documentation is very helpful. So we may have some time to dig through that documentation. And also what we also find particularly helpful is that the Slack channel, the official Slack channel on DataHub, has all of the previous like messages and whatnot. And those are not cut off by we only retain the last 10,000 messages or something that Slack has. So I find looking through those Slack channels as well for previous responses super helpful. And lastly, don't be shy about raising questions to the community. That's something I've noticed that a lot of people would raise questions, which I think is really helpful because a lot of times we all have similar questions. And so sometimes I find that for us, we sometimes jump on existing question threads and work with that and get more details from that perspective. So that would be my advice from my experience.
Awesome. All right, Stephen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephen. It was great chatting with you this morning.
Absolutely. It was, thanks for having me.